Um, our topic revolves around the healthiness of certain foods that the average person consumes. Since in our group we're all athletes, we believe that healthy meals are an important part of everybody's lifestyle. So, in our experiment, we set out to find and which foods are the healthiest and which are not. In our experiment, we'll be testing out how long each food sample lasts in sulfuric acid, which represents which in our experiment would represent the stomach acid in our bodies. In other words, we're looking specifically at the rates of reactions in order to support our hypothesis. And our hypothesis is that foods like red meat and chicken take the longest to digest because their chemical structures are so much more uh, the bonds in their found in their structures are a lot more stronger than um, in foods such as vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. So, in other words, we believe that at higher concentrations, um, red meat and chicken are a lot more unhealthier than fruits and vegetables and any sort of car- whole grains. The materials we used were safety rubber gloves, safety glasses, 300 milliliter beakers, stirring sticks, sulfuric acid, and 300 grams of the following foods: red meat, chicken, rice, red peppers, pears, and white bread. In our procedure, we did the following. First, we placed all the beakers in the same place so the reaction would occur under the same environment. Then we labeled each container in order not to confuse any of the data. In our second step, we poured 150 milliliters of sulfuric acid in each beaker. In our third step, we put one of the food samples in the container and let it run for 2 hours. Our fourth step was to stop our first timer as soon as we noticed any changes, any noticeable changes. And our fifth step was to repeat 3 and 4 until we have used up every food sample. So in our procedure, we stopped our first stopwatch at the time that we observed noticeable changes. So what this allowed for is sort of like a comparison of how long each reaction took. So from slowest to fastest, the reactions went from red meat was the slowest, chicken was the second slowest, vegetables followed chicken, fruit, rice, and finally bread being the quickest reaction. The initial rates of reaction for each of these was, well, it started up as 0, but as soon as we poured it in, it went um, zero point zero 0.03 grams per second for the meat, um, 0.04 grams per second for the chicken, 0.05 grams for vegetables and fruits, and 0.08 grams per second for the rice, and finally zero point 0.1 gram per second for the bread. We can't show the rates of the reactions because we made a mistake and we didn't measure the change in concentration because of our lack of materials. So that is basically where our results, our data is basically kind of not wrong, but it could have been a lot better.
So, if we were to conduct this experiment again, we would change the following. We would add more varieties of food because we felt that we were limited um, as we were testing to see which food broke down faster in the sulfuric acid. Adding more choices of food samples would allow us to have more data, allowing us to visually see which food types would be best for our bodies digestion wise, because we only had about 6 types of food and we felt limited because as athletes we have to basically watch our diet on a daily basis. So if we were to have a bigger variety of food, that would have been better for us to visually see how the sulfuric acid and the food reacts with one another. Um, the second thing, or the second factor we would change in this experiment is the amount of time we tested the acid on the food, or basically both with one another. We went with 2 hours. However, the three of us felt that if we were to leave it for longer than 2 hours, possibly 6 hours, we would see better results. Just because within 2 hours it was darkened, but we felt like if we were to leave it for 6 hours, we would see it completely digested or deteriorated in that sulfuric acid. Um, and it would tell us or show us how each type of food reacted with the sulfuric acid. And the last factor that we would change would be um, the to take more exact measurements, because we used beakers for this experiment as we were pouring in the sulfuric acid. So we used beakers to put the sulfuric acid in. However, um, beforehand we didn't know that we had to use cylinders for the experiment. So we had used just we got the sulfuric acid and we poured into the beaker, and we poured up to 150 milliliters and millimeters, sorry. And we felt that it wasn't accurate. And then we had talked to one of our teachers, and she said we had to use a cylinder beforehand so that the accuracy was correct throughout all of the beakers. So if we were to do this again, we will have to use a cylinder just to make sure that the sulfuric acid was equal with all beakers, and it didn't have more or less, so that the data would show mixed results. So those were the things that we would change if we were to conduct this experiment again.